Hello and welcome Wednesday back. What is happy? Today we are going to be doing a rundown of Tinto Talks number 40, which is current. We're still catching up, so more catch-up episodes will be kind of released at a later date. But this one is going to be covering government reforms, which I think is a really interesting system, which is going to allow for a great deal of customizability between your countries, which is something I'm super excited for. The game spans, 1337 to ostensibly 1836, something around this time period, and for half a millennia, you're going to need a lot of different options to represent the different governments from a global perspective, and so this is the system that they have for it, and so, without further ado, let's read through it. Here we have, hello everyone, and welcome to another Tinto Talks, the Happy Wednesday. Very important. When we talk about our upcoming top secret, big secret with codename Project Teaser. They misspelled it again. It's not Project Caesar, it's Project Teaser. But let's get into it. No notes. This is perfect. Although, do they have the happy salutation at the end? This is the real question. It is often missed. Stay tuned as next week... Aww. Okay, but we will hear about Parliaments next week. We don't get the happy salutation sandwich, which is the proper way to do salutations. The greeting and the goodbye. This week, we will go into details about the government reforms and look into some specific ones that you may use or not. Fair. Representing everything from ancient traditions to progressive amendments, government reforms outline the shape of governance in a country. Each one is unique, but they often give powerful trade-offs that open up unique playstyles. And this is one of the things I'm so excited about for Tinto Talks, or not Tinto Talks, the game that they're going to be teasing, that's going to be released, unless it's not. Maybe this is just a psyop, and they're just going to tease the game forever. Each one, the fact that you can... the replayability looks so good because there's so many different angles to approach from, and if you can slot in different government reforms and they dramatically change the way that you play because they kind of change the balance, then you can do like a run on, a pirate run, or you can do, a merchant run or something like this, and they will all kind of feel different, and what optimal play looks like for one run is going to be different for a different run. And so this makes it so you don't just do the kind of very same thing over and over and over. At the start of the game, countries are only allowed to take 2 government reforms, but every age there's at least one advance that unlocks another slot for reforms. Makes sense. Some specific reforms add another slot, so they are essentially free for that country. And you know what they say, if it's free, it's for me. On average, in the final age of the game, a country may have 7 or 8 reforms. Okay. Unless they just decide not to reform. Common government reforms that are available to everyone are likely to have an age requirement, shout out to having an age requirement, spreading out their availability over the game. You must be over this height to ride the ride. Some reforms are major reforms, and a country may or may not have more than one major reform at a time. That is interesting. May not. Okay, sorry, I just added words in there. They may not have more than one major reform at a time. And this is interesting. So we have like a pillar reform that will, I assume, give way bigger bonuses and trade-offs. There will be a diverse selection of reforms from each age, with about 5 new ones added each age, and another 2 per government type. The unique ones are far more plentiful, diverse, with over 150 in-game. There is so much content for the game that they have been discussing and teasing and spoiling, and for me, when we initially started doing these Tinto Talks, one of the things that I was very suspicious of, and I'm still suspicious of, was Johan opening up with saying that there will be more content for EU5 on release, except he didn't say that because he's never said EU5 at any point ever, than there is on EU4 right now, which is just like an absolutely incredible statement. But we see more and more stuff like this where they are showing a mechanic, and then they're like, by the way... we have 150 of these with unique flavor for each country, and that is just absolutely incredible. At the same time, the statement seems almost too good to be true, such that it makes me not think, but worry, be concerned that everything is hyperbolic. which is perhaps a good thing, because if they just like super deliver the most like fleshed out Paradox game ever on release, that would just be absolutely insane, because everyone knows that the pattern kind of is something relatively bare bones gets released, and I actually am completely fine with this, because I think that the way that game development for these types of games works is you have to release something really bare bones and then scaffold and build off of it for like a decade, and then you get a really good game at the end, and I'm completely fine with this pattern. But if they just like out the gate release something that is just like this flagship, like it's already got all the content in it, that would just be absolutely incredible. But this is, every time I see something like this, these are the thoughts that go through my head. In the user interface, the government reforms exist in the Crown's part of the estate screen, as the Crown does not really have any estate privileges. It makes sense. And so we see here, we see the reforms, the two that are slotted in. We have one available slot. We see all of these estate privileges. That was probably from a previous dev diary or Tinto talk that we haven't got caught up on yet. We will be planning on doing that in the coming days, but not on the coming Wednesdays, because the coming Wednesdays we will always do what is kind of current. Commoners. Can commoners have a... There's a slot. Okay, well, we'll figure that out when we read the states. France can have 3 reforms, but are the current ones actually beneficial? Removing... Shout out to France. Jeez. Bang, bang. Shots fired. Removing a government reform currently costs 20 stability, which is a bit cheap, but that may change. Some reforms cannot be removed at will, though, and are locked until specific circumstances have allowed them to be removed. Like a malice? Adding a new reform, like... The mandate of heaven shall not be removed. Adding a new government reform does not have a cost, but can take up to 2 years before the benefits are fully implemented. We like ourselves some equilibriums. I think that a play pattern I would really hate is one where you're juggling around reforms. And so this is one way by which you can discourage reform swapping, which I'm happy with. Here are some examples of early government reforms that many nations have access to from the start. You're not going to show us some crazy one? Okay. Religious tolerance. For when your country is populated by people who practice different beliefs and confessions, therefore it would be prudent to govern, not government, in a tolerant manner with them, ensuring their support for the government. We somehow skipped ahead and read this when we were over here. It gives monthly progress to communalism, which is going to be, I forget what the name of it is, a social culture, a value, I forget what the name of it is, but it is going to be a trait that is going to give certain benefits and malices, and is operating on a spectrum relative to communalism on one end, and then like intolerance on the other, or something like this. And so we will see that it will be easier to have a more stable kind of government, and maybe if you're like on one of these border areas, like if you're in the Ottoman Empire, where on one side you have like the Orthodox religion, and on the other side you have the Muslim religion, something like religious tolerance will play really well. And then if you're in a place like France, where it's like all Catholic or something like this, something like this won't be that useful, I suppose, unless you're conquering a lot in a different area, which you would maybe not want to do, because it would be hard to establish a lot of control there, these types of things. And so we see here already, it feels like this is going to be one that is going to be regionally useful in some areas, and is also going to make expansion into fighting into both religions, something that is going to be a little bit better if you have religious tolerance, because if you're playing as the Ottomans, and you go and you conquer some Catholics, they will be more accepted. And then if you go and conquer some Muslims, assuming that's your primary religion, they'll of course be accepted, and you can kind of do what was the EU4 expansion plan to reduce aggressive expansion, which is you want to conquer people of different religions, and I'm not sure if this is how AE is going to work in EU5, aka Project Teaser, but it will be... The fact that this is going to lead... The thing I'm trying to stress here is that this will lead to possibly different gameplay patterns, and there are going to be different circumstances where this is going to be good, but hopefully it won't just be categorically good, which I think it wouldn't be, because if you have no heretics or heathens, it's hard to imagine a world where this is good. But let's continue on. Diplomatic traditions, shout out. I generally prefer playing almost entirely diplomatically, and so I'm always happy to see things like this. From time immemorial, our people have favored the word above the sword, beep boop, giving us the ability to forge lasting relationships with our allies and friends, and a reputation as honest and loyal as we back it up with the backup truck outside. Monthly progress to conciliatory, and so here we're going to gain progress towards our values, diplomatic reputation, and diplomatic capacity. This seems fantastic. Play the Diplo game. I imagine this is not one of the major reforms, but this is going to be kind of just a standard one that anyone can play into these two. I think that they said, and they're available at the start of the game. And I imagine as the game gets later and later, you'll start to get to more and more complex government reforms. But let's continue on. Here we have military order. So this is probably a major one. This is a major reform that the Catholic theocracies have access to. It is one of the types of reforms that truly defines a country. The military orders were created in the Middle Ages as a militant body of the Catholic Church. Its members are both warriors and monks who take religious vows and are destined to defend and expel Christianity. Expand, not expel. Whoops, my bad. A little bit of a slip there. That would be the other military order. So here we have monthly progress to belligerent, monthly progress to offensive, of course giving us values here. Clergy levy size plus 25%, maybe the target of military sponsorships, and so this is probably the one that is going to be defining in terms of gameplay patterns, is that you are going to try and curry sponsorships from large European countries in order to fuel your belligerent offenses. So this is going to lead to a dramatically different play pattern. Clergy allowed to lead. Yes, military sponsorships are vitally important to a holy order. Yeah. So we have unique government reforms. So let's take a look at a more unique government reform that we have in the game right now. We have family sagas. This is a unique reform that anyone with primary culture Icelandic can get, which both Iceland and Greenland starts with. Very cool. Our ancient sagas are orally passed through generations, tell of adventures and expeditions to a distant and wild land over the Western Sea. Perhaps one day we will follow in the footsteps of our old compatriots. You know what is... I mean, like, little bit of a fun fact, like, on a per capita basis, Iceland has way more of World's Strongest Men than, like, any other country, and it's not even close. Iceland has, like, a population of, like, 300,000. By now, it might be, like, 400,000, and I think they've had, like, 5 or 6 out of the 20 World's Strongest Men ever. World's Strongest Men has been going on over 20 years, but many athletes have won multiple times. And they have, like, Magnus Magnusson, Hafthor Bjornsson, and, like, with their little population of, like, 300,000, they have produced some of the biggest and strongest dudes ever. I think the average height in Iceland is over 6 foot for men. It might be over 6 foot for women. And so it's just, like, those people be big. But talking back to family sagas, they can recruit explorers, they can invite settlers, and so already we have a play pattern that's going to dramatically change, because you can colonize super easy with these guys, maybe, and maybe you can look to play a lower powered colonial game playing as Iceland, because you have access to these additional things that are going to be, when you're that big, you're not afraid of the sea. Why would you be afraid of the sea? We have monthly progress to naval, allows exploration missions, and cultural tradition +2. And so this is going to be one that looks very nice, very on flavor, allows you to do interesting things, allows for an interesting run. I assume that it's going to be a way weaker run than, like, trying to do a colonization game as Spain as Portugal, or Portugal rather. But this is going to be one that is going to play a little uniquely, be cool, this type of thing. If only they had population to exploit it. Yeah, basically. So, there we go. We see 3 departments. This is available to any country that has Chinese or Korean as their court language. I wonder how easy it is to swap your court language, but okay. The 3-department system originates from the ancient Chinese empires and is the primary administrative structure of the state. All departments focus on several aspects of the process of drafting, establishing, and revisiting state policies. We see set policy cost is reduced. Change policy cost is reduced, and administrative efficiency is increased. I'm not sure how often you want to swap around policies or how beneficial that will be, and so it's very, very difficult for me to even remotely try and analyze this one. But even if you're not swapping around, the extra administrative efficiency is going to provide you with something. I wonder... So this will maybe be good if swapping policies, if there's a good strategy for it. We see Magna Carta. Shout out to King John, the guy who had to sign this. Shout out to his brother, the guy who ruined England before King John, which is why King John... nobody likes King John. He's the only one who's ever been named John. The kings stopped naming their kids John after King John because he was considered to be so bad because he had to sign this document. King John is... how bad he was as a king is dramatically overrated, considering it was kind of his brother that ruined the country with an enormous amount of debt in the Crusades. But this is a unique reform that England starts with, shout out to England, and is possible for any country with the English primary culture or if their overlord has this reform. The Great Charter is a constitutional law that distributes power away from the monarch. This is why it was considered a disaster by the monarchy, and towards the barons. First signed in 1215 by King John, or as everyone likes to call him, John Lackland, I think. Is it John Lackland? It's some insulting nickname. It is one of the earliest documents that to enshrine the idea of civil liberties, aka your king be a wuss, such as the right to a fair trial, terrible, and protection against illegal imprisonment. We don't need that. But we will have monthly progress to free subjects, monthly progress to individualism. This actually looks like it's beneficial. Nobles' powers plus 20%. Yikes. Parliament-based supports plus 10%. It gives some power to the nobility and shapes the country towards certain ideals. This actually looks like it'd be fine to slot in. And also, yeah, okay, we have King John. Stay tuned, as next week we will have even louder things outside. Promise. We will look into the different types of parliaments and how you interact with them. But that was our kind of Happy Wednesday for today. Very cool. Mainly kind of... It's interesting to see how things are going to play out differently, for different countries. And as we acquire more and more pieces of things, it is easier and easier to see this. One thing, when we were doing the Tinto maps, we've kind of not really done them, is that the Tinto maps probably shape, or the maps seem to shape what it is you can focus on as well, and then you're layering it, kind of with what reforms you have, because there might be a reform if everyone's resources were the same. And just to, kind of talk about this a little bit more, if everyone's resources were the same, you would probably want to do the exact same reforms every single time, in order to play optimally, and then the game would play exactly the same. The resources, to me, seem like an underlying structure that, to some extent, can inform what reforms are good, and that will further inform what playstyle is good. Now, some reforms are locked behind various things, and so you can't, for example, use family sagas if you're playing Portugal, which would probably be good on Portugal, I assume. But you could have, certain resources that will make, playing in a particular way better. For example, or not necessarily resources, but also starting conditions. Diplomatic traditions is probably going to be a little bit better if you're playing in the HRE, and you're trying to get elected, something like this. But resources for being navally oriented are probably going to be better for the countries that have more boats, or the countries that are geographically more isolated by the water, and these types of things. And so the combination of geography and resources probably informing which ones of these will be good, and then these government reforms further informing what type of play style would be good is something I'm very excited for, because this will make it so that, for every run, you're thinking about doing something different, which for Victoria 3 is kind of absent, unfortunately. In that doing the same stuff is pretty much good every single time. Victoria 3, you have more of a global kind of situation, so you're just going to go for South Africa and Borneo every single game, this type of thing, and the same principal group, which is like kind of the equivalent of reforms. The same principal groups are basically just good for every single run, and so you don't think as much about. You don't have to reevaluate what's good as often. You just kind of try and refine your evaluations of what the base kind of looks like, and then that's kind of how every country ought to play. So I'm super excited for EU5 here, with the kind of caveat that we talked about a little bit, where we were saying, where's the 150? Well, where they said they had over 150 reforms, where we're like a little bit leery about how the game is on delivery. But anyways, hope you guys enjoyed. If you did, please feel free to like, comment, subscribe. And other than that, have a happy Wednesday.